Just wanted to show you some differences between the type of components that we use at Divine Hammer computers and what a company like Dell would use in their computers. Here's a couple sticks I just pulled out of a Dell. They don't have a brand that I recognize. This computer was quite dusty, so they're still kind of dusted. According to the program I was using, it tells me they're Samsung, but they're clearly not branded Samsung. Maybe the chips are. So anyways, when you get a computer from Divine Hammer Computers, we don't put no-name memory in the computer. We tend to use high-quality names, like Mushkin. Mushkin's a company out of Denver, Colorado. Very high standard. You can see the memory stick itself has a heat spreader, which really isn't the most necessary thing out there, but it definitely doesn't hurt. And so, little higher quality, respectable company, good warranty. No clue what that one is. But that's one difference. Now we'll go on to the insides of this computer, and I'll show you some of the differences there. Okay, I've taken the side panel off the computer, and the first thing that I notice is clearly things are all over the place compared to where they would normally be in a computer. And what I mean by that, the motherboard is essentially upside down, similar to the failed BTX specification that Intel tried to push years ago. Didn't work. For some reason, Dell's decided that this is the better option. I can only assume it's because they want to use only one fan in the system. So there you have your intake fan. Pulls air from the front of the case and just kind of fires it out the grill at the back of the case. Not necessarily a bad thing. However, the motherboard is very custom, clearly to Dell specifications. In fact, it's marked Dell as the brand name, upside down. So clearly Dell must use this in a computer with it the other way, you'd think. And now the other changes. The power supply. Dell has a habit of running extra wires. I'm not exactly sure if this is ATX specification or if they have changed the wiring, which causes problems. If your Dell power supply goes bad, say you were to run out to, say, a Staples and buy another power supply, put it in your computer, you've just fried your motherboard. So goodbye, computer. And again, you're looking at a Dell branded power supply, which they may or may not be the manufacturer of. I'm not 100% sure. Super fine print. I don't know if I can see what the wattage is on this. It does look like 230 watts is the max power on this power supply, which is, in my opinion, extremely low. But I mean, obviously they're using a power supply that they feel is good enough quality to be a 230 watt, and they probably know that you're not going to overload this. And one of the ways that they know you're not going to overload this, well, they haven't given you a video card slot. So with your two PCI card slots, yeah, you're going to be pretty hard pressed to overload this. And you got a PCI Express 1 slot, 1X. So yeah, this isn't a serious computer as far as gaming or anything like that goes. It's great for a web surfer or a workplace. It's really hard to see any name brands in this without pulling it all apart. I'm sure they've used a name brand hard drive. What it is, I'm not 100% sure. And they probably used, I have seen Dell branded DVD drives, so that's possible. Anyways, that's a couple differences inside the case, and I'll now show you some of the parts that I have and how I go about building a computer and the quality parts that I go with. Because I personally believe the parts that I build a computer with are far superior, and they allow you to expand, add a video card, heck, sometimes add 3 video cards or 4. So something like this will blow it out of the water, and plus you can use a regular power supply in case it did go bad, and a little more accessible to fix a computer yourself or get somebody like me to fix it if it happens to go bad. I don't need to order special parts. I can get them regular to a specification. Okay guys, this is I'm going to show you a power supply that I'm putting in this new computer that I'm building, and we're going to unbox it. I'm going to show you some of the differences between this one and the Dell that I was showing you in the previous clip. Okay, so here's the power supply that I plan to use. It's an OCZ 600 watt ModStream Pro. It does have a 3-year warranty, which is good. Ultra efficient. It's 82% efficient, which is pretty good. Anything that doesn't go to the power of the system, the higher efficiency, the better. Closer you can get to 100% efficient, the less heat you'll have. It does have a 135 millimeter top mounted fan for cooling, and it has active power factor correction. And of course easy mod cable management, which is cool for keeping your case less cluttered. This power supply is able to deliver 504 watts, which is on the 12 volt rail, I believe. Yeah, 12 volt rail, total power 600 watts, made in China, as almost everything is nowadays. And the back pretty much says the same. Multi GPUs and stuff like that. So let's open this up and take a look at the insides and see what it looks like. Now we'll bust into it. Okay, so put my knife away. We've got a user manual, really not all that exciting. Like getting a user manual with a toaster. It's pretty easy to figure out what to use it for. Okay. Power cable. Get the box out of the way. Unbag the power supply. So there's the unit. The ModStream Pro, 600 watt. Cables are all bundled together. You have your 24 or 20 plus 4 pin. You have an 8-pin connector, which I believe can be split into 2 4-pins. Or no, maybe not. That's an 8-pin connector for the motherboard. And a 4-pin connector. So you need one or the other normally. And then this is where all your cables will plug into those ports. And you have a bag or 135 millimeter fan on the bottom of the power supply to bring in fresh cool air. And then you have a bag of cables. And you can pick out which cables you need for your computer build. It just makes things a little neater. Okay, now this is the processor that I plan on using in the computer. It's an Intel Core i7 3rd generation chip on the socket 1155, on the 1155 socket. 3rd generation. A lot of the computers you buy or could buy in a store right now are 2nd generation. Well, this is the new chip that just came out. It's a 3770K, and what that means is, well, it's the highest end chip of the 3rd generation, It has excellent onboard video. It's a 4-core and it's hyper-threaded. And it has turbo boost and all kinds of neat things like that. And HD Graphics 4000, which is their Intel's high-end. And it's also unlocked, which, if you know me, I like to overclock processors. It's super easy, and it's like getting something for free. Well, the processor costs a little bit more than the other one that isn't unlocked, but the benefit, I think, is huge. So we'll open this up and we'll see what's in the box. We'll unbox it. You have an instruction book, which is kind of boring, I guess, but it is an instruction book. And let's see, it's sealed, and your Core i7 sticker, which I'll put on the case later. I don't have the case today because it didn't show up, but it'll be here tomorrow, hopefully. Man, they make this tough to unbox. Rip at it, I guess. Okay, so there we have the CPU. Again, I realize it doesn't look like much, but it's pretty cool. And then you have the stock heat sink that they put to try and cool this thing. Now, this chip gets quite hot. I want to show you how tiny the heat sink is. Chunk of aluminum, chunk of copper, some thermal paste, and a little tiny fan. Now, I don't know about you, but on a $400 processor that I want to overclock, it's a processor that's meant for overclocking, am I going to really want to use a cheap little thing like this? I mean, to give you an indication of how cheesy it is, this is what a heatsink looked like on the older Intel processors. Yeah, if I can get that in the same shot. So yeah, I'm not using this one, the big one, I'm not using this one. I'll show you guys what I've got. Take a look at my little friend. How's this for a beast? It's liquid cooling, which is a little different. Basically it works like a car. It transfers to liquid and then goes to a rad and then cools off. So we'll open this up and I'll show you what it looks like. Get the box out of the way. Again, we got an instruction book. A DVD, which I may or may not use to install. There might be a newer version of the software on the website. I'll check that out. And please reboot after you've installed the hardware and the software. No problem. You have all your brackets to hook it to your motherboard, and all your screws and mounting hardware. And you have 2 fans, very good quality Antec fans. At least they seem to be. So you have 2 of those. They go on both sides of the radiator. And then you have the actual unit itself that's already pre-filled with liquid. And you don't have to do anything, which is kind of cool. You just screw that to the case. Here your back fan would go. The tubing is very flexible, which is good. You can get in all kinds of positions. And the actual water block looks like that. Copper. And has the pump built in. Should keep the processor nice and cool. And I guess we'll go on to the next part now. Okay, the next part is something I can almost guarantee that you don't have in your computer. Especially if it's store-bought, and especially if it's not a higher end computer. Because of the cost, not many people use them. But the costs are falling. And what I'm talking about is an SSD, or what they call a solid-state drive. Incredibly fast. You're looking at 5 to 6 times as fast as a regular hard drive. Unfortunately, they are fairly small. This is only 120 gigabytes. So we'll open it up. Again, it's Mushkin. One of my favorite brands. Although I do have other brands that I go to, but this is one of the most reasonably priced. And so there's the drive. I'll get it out of the plastic. Cardboard, then plastic. And the advantage to an SSD, basically, not only are they faster, but also you'll notice they're the same size as a laptop hard drive, which they can be put in a laptop. Very good upgrade if you don't need the storage space. It'll make your laptop like a new computer. Pretty much guarantee it. So yeah, it comes like that. They are more durable. They are just chips. There's no moving parts. They don't really heat up. They don't use a lot of power. You can hide them pretty much anywhere in a computer case. So they come in handy. They're very good for running your Windows directly on them. Or you can do what I'm going to do. I'm going to use this as a cache drive to basically store programs temporarily until they're needed. And it'll pull them off them really quick, so the programs will load really fast. I was planning on building a computer for a photographer around here. I'm not going to mention names, but he wanted me to build him a computer, and then never got a hold of me. I was busy with hockey, and he went and got another guy to build the computer for him, and he says the guy did it for cost. Well, I'll tell you one thing. Cost? What is that? That's cost of his parts, cost of retail. I don't know about you, but I don't pay retail when I buy parts. And I seriously doubt that his computer could handle. For one, I know for a fact it doesn't have that new CPU. And I know it's not going to have something as cool as an SSD in it for speed. So he got a slower computer. Odds are he paid as much or more than what this one was worth when I'm building it. And this one would just wipe the floor with it. It's not even close. So this here is a 3.5-inch bracket, so you can mount this into your computer. Basically, it turns the small drive into a regular size hard drive so that it fits in your case. Now, some cases you don't need the adapter, but it's nice to see that they included it. Prevents me from having to go out and buy one of these separately. Okay, the next part is a little more normal. I'm sure most people will recognize it. It's a regular hard drive. And this is exactly how the parts come to me. They're for system builders. So they don't come with fancy cables, they don't come with a cool box. They're just a hard drive. And it's in an anti-static bag, which I can open. And for this one, we're using a Seagate 500 gig drive as our regular data drive. Not too much to say about this one. It is one of the faster hard drives on the market. But just a regular hard drive. So, nothing too special. Okay, here's the next thing. Now, again, another familiar thing that you'll recognize. At least I think you will. It's a DVD burner. And this is how it comes to me. In a bag. With a disc. Again, no cables. I have to provide those. One of the reasons I do it is it's cheaper, and two, it's a lot more compact. So this is an Asus 24 times DVD burner. Not much to say about this one, actually. Just it does burn CDs and DVDs, and it uses the SATA interface, which is standard nowadays. And it does come with a DVD suite, which includes Nero 10 Essentials, eGreen, eHammer, a firmware update, and an install guide. Kind of cool. Nice to see them include that. Not a lot of people do. And that's it for that one. We're on to the next part. Okay, here's the next part. It's the motherboard. So it's the Asus P8 Z77
or Z if you're in the US, -VLX. Yeah. Other than Z77, that's pretty much the only, well, one of the most important things. That's the new chipset that uses the new processor. So, or processor, if you like to say it that way. It's energy saving, world's best selling, and most award-winning motherboards. Okay, has GPU boost for graphic upgrade. UEFI BIOS. That's kind of cool. It's a graphical user interface instead of going to text when you're changing the BIOS settings. It has USB 3.0 boost. Network eye control, whatever these things are. Virtual MVP, which is cool for video encoding. It has smart response technology, which is exactly what we're going to be using for the cache drive. Digital VRM, PCI Express 3.0 ready. And what else does Jesus have to say for himself? Yeah, I think pretty much everything I just read is on the back of this. So, we'll open it up. There's probably not going to be a lot in the box for accessories. We'll, fish the motherboard out first. There we go, get rid of that. You have your user guide, you have your driver CD. I prefer not to use this unless I absolutely have to. The drivers are normally newer on the web. You have some SATA cables, and you have your back plate to put on the back of the case. Okay, and now we have the motherboard. Take it out of its plastic bag here. Be careful with it, of course. So the back of the motherboard, you've got your 5.1 audio, Ethernet, USB 2.0, some USB 3 in the blue. And you have 3 video outs, VGA, DVI, and HDMI. You have a digital Toslink audio out, PS2 port, and 2 more USB 2.0s. Okay. And then you have the spots where you put a video card. You have 2 of them. Yeah. Let's see. 8-pin connector. Place to put memory. Up here. And where you'd plug in all your hard drives. Pretty nice looking motherboard, even though it is one of the more budget ones. It's going to be fun to get this computer up and running and see what you can do. This is the memory that I plan to use. It's 3 sticks, 4 gigs each of DDR3. So 12 gigs in total. If for some reason that doesn't work compatibility wise, I don't see why it wouldn't, but if it decides to give me problems, I'll just go with 2 sticks, and then it'll be balanced. And yeah, but it's only supposed to be 8 gigs of RAM in this, but I figured I'll go for 12. The price is so reasonable on memory right now, especially DDR3, and the more the merrier. Okay, my motherboard is now on my test bench, and we have installed the processor. That's the first step. And now I'm going to install some memory, which is rather easy. I mean, it's not the most difficult thing in the world. Push down all the tabs. Line up the slot, line up both ends, and push straight down until you hear 2 clicks. one on each side. And then you go this one. Click, click. And the third one. Click, click. So there we go. 12 gigs of memory installed. And I'll double check that in the instruction book and make sure those are the ports I want to use. And we'll check in the next step. Okay, I went with the stock cooler for now until I get the software installed, and then I'll make the swap. Basically, it's all ready to go, all powered up. All the wires are done. I just need to jump it to get it to work because it doesn't have a case. So basically what your case switch does is shorts 2 pins on the motherboard. Now, I happen to know which 2 those are, so I'll short them and the computer should fire up. There we go. And she's up and running. And so I'll just go install Windows and we'll go from there. And next time you see it, it'll probably be back in the case and we'll have some benchmarks hopefully. Okay, next item is the case. And this is the Bitphoenix Merc Alpha gaming case. And we'll get it open, take a look at it. Out of the box is always fun. Let's see if gravity will help us. Packed in hard foam. Ow! And has static. That hurt. Always good to have a static generator around a computer. So I'll fry it. Okay. So right on the top side you can see you have 4 USB ports. You have a microphone port, a headphone port, power button, reset button, power light, and hard drive activity LED. The front of the case, pretty plain looking. Nothing special about this case really. The top you have 2 cooling grills for 120 millimeter fans. And for the back, you have a 120 millimeter fan at the top. Looks like there's grommets for water cooling. Pretty small though. Your slots, bottom mounted power supply, that'll go in there, and where your I/O shield goes from your motherboard. So we'll open it up and take a look. So on the inside, not really any surprises. You have your accessory bundle, has a bunch of screws, your Bitphoenix case logo, an instruction book on how to install drives into the case, and you have your front panel connections, your USB, your hard drive and power switches, and your audio. There's not much else to say about this for this case. And of course, to go with the case, we have 4 Bitphoenix Spectre fans, 120 millimeters, and these will go in there just as extra cooling. Keep the computer cool. And nothing fancy about those either, really. Okay, everything's all back together, and we're going to push the power button and see if it turns on and boots up normally. We have power. Monitor turns on. Fans are spinning. Starting Windows. The fans here might not be turning, but maybe it's just because it's so cold. So we'll find out. I'll give you a little closer look. There's the cooler, the fan. Had to take out the rear fan so it would fit. There's that fan. DVD drive's up top. Some fancy cabling. And there's the hard drive and the SSD down there. Yeah. Well, that's my computer build. It's up and running. I just got to put the sides on it, and it'll be ready to go to the customer as soon as I do some testing on it. Make sure everything's stable. Okay, one last thing. Check out the cool lighting on this. I can do any color I want. Like literally any color. I have a red, green, blue setting. So we can start off with a little bit of red. I can turn it up. That's its maximum brightness for red. If we wanted a little green, I could add green in. It turns it to yellow. Interesting. And we can add blue. This is so cool. That's white. So you got maximum every color. Bring this down. Say 25. We bring this one down to 25. We should end up with a nice blue, hopefully. I don't know, I think I just kind of like the straight blue. Oh well. Anyways, this is probably my last clip. Computer's running beautifully. I'll show you some benchmarks, and yeah, I'll show you some benchmarks coming up in pictures, and I'll show you what my final overclock is once I finish that. Okay guys, this is Jason at Divine Hammer Computers, signing off.